Hello again, and thanks for joining me. If you saw my previous video, you'll have seen it or heard at the end of the video I spoke about how this video was going to be me talking through a line of plastic figures that I'm particularly impressed with. And as you can see from the thumbnail, that line is ICM. And this came about because I bought a set of ICM figures some years ago now, and it was my first experience of them, and it was this set here, the German infantry set. I came home with this. I bought it at a model show, came home with it, opened it up, and I was immediately struck with how fine the quality of the moulding and casting of these plastic figures is. And I set about painting one of them. I snipped off the officer off the sprues and assembled him and started painting him. And I never really got around to finishing it to my satisfaction. It was kind of like 95% finished, and I just sort of left it as was. And I came across it recently. It was sitting in an open box of garbage on my bench. It was gathering dust and dirt. It was in a right old state. And I just looked at it again and thought, this is actually a really nice figure. So I brushed it down and thought, well, I could just do a little bit more painting to it. All I needed to do was a little bit of highlighting, a little bit of shading, tiny little bit of detail here and there, and then stick it on the base. So I did that. This is the fellow here, and you can have a closer look up here. I'll put it up there for you to see. And I'm really impressed with ICM, and I have got other ICM figure sets, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through these figure sets, or part of them, and illustrate why I think they are so good, and also why I'm not as enamoured with Tamiya figures as maybe others are, and as I might be. Don't get me wrong, they're excellent figures. They are very, very good, but they do have one flaw that just doesn't sit well with me, and I'm going to speak through that as well. If you can look through the paint of this one here, you'll see that it is, an outstanding piece of plastic moulding, and I hope to show you, with the unpainted versions, just how good they really are. So please join me for that. So here's an example from the set I just showed you. I want to draw your attention to just how fine the detail is, the collar patches, the sharpness of the buttons, the sharpness of the belts, the detail on the belt buckle there, or the edges of the pockets. Just notice how sharp and refined they are. This is very, very close to resin quality. In fact, it in places matches resin quality. Also, look at the face. There's nothing wrong with that face other than there's a lack of detail in the ears because of the limitations of injection moulding. A resin figure would have the detail that this one lacks in that area, but in the main, I think these are exceptionally good. I also want to talk about the drapery. I find this very convincing. All this drapery. It looks entirely natural to scale, and it will paint very, very well and look authentic once it is painted. Now, here are some very recent ICM figures. These are from this set, and although the plastic has changed in colour, it seems to be just as good at holding the definition as that other sort of tan coloured plastic. Again, note the sharpness of the belts, and just the detail on the belt buckle, all the rest of it. Also, how the drapery again is very well handled. The faces too are an absolute joy. Now, of course, ICM are not the only Ukrainian manufacturer of plastic figures. We have Mini Art, who I'm not going to talk about in this video, and Masterbox. Now, this particular sprue comes from this box of figures, and if you told me years ago that I'd buy a box of figures with the word rapists on the front, I'd have not believed you, but here we are. Masterbox figures are also extremely high quality figures, in my opinion. but I don't think they have the same sharpness, the same finesse that ICM have. You can see here the edges of the straps and the buckles are just a little bit soft compared to the ICM ones. I mean, still very good for a plastic figure, don't get me wrong, but just for my money, they don't match the ICM figures. Now let's talk about Tamiya. These figures I'm going to show you are from these two sets. At first glance, I thought these German figures were a very high quality figure, and again, compared with many other plastic figures, they are. But there are a couple of things I really don't like about them. The first is that the detail is pretty indistinct in places. So look at that belt buckle. There's an impression of detail, but really not much more than an impression. The collar patches and the edges of the collars are very soft and rounded over, and there doesn't seem to be the sharpness that we've seen in the other plastic figures so far. And this is the same across all of the figures. You know, if you notice the belt buckle on this one, I mean, it's there, but it is nowhere near as sharp and well defined as the ICM ones, or indeed the iron cross around his neck. It's just a vague cross shape. The ICM one has the sort of hollow middle with the raised silver outside, in impeccable detail in 1/35. Again, the collar patches very, very soft and indistinct. And the other thing I don't really like about these Tamiya figures is the drapery. Again, at first glance, it appears to be very, very interesting. But across their range of modern figures, it looks to me as if all the fabric is extremely thin, very, very fine fabric. And it kind of looks like the person has just jumped into a swimming pool and got out, and all the fabric is clinging and sticking to itself and sticking to the legs. I mean, that's one example there, but it's the same on the US set too. So we'll notice how it all just sort of seems to be clinging to the leg rather than hanging as realistically as I would like. It looks like a very, very thin fabric. It just doesn't strike me as particularly good. And perhaps the most egregious example of this is from Tamiya's recent Kettenkrad release. Again, I think this drapery is overdone. And look how it appears to just kind of like suck to the human form underneath. Having said that, I still believe these figures are very high quality. Plastic figures have come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. These figures and the others I have will hopefully all be used one day, because they're certainly worth it. And if I do use them and paint them up, I'll be sure to share with you. So tell me, what do you think of these ICM figures? Are you as enthusiastic about them as I am, or does your heart lie elsewhere? Well, I hope you found that interesting. These are just my personal opinions, as I said, and they're not to be taken as gospel. The other figures that I have, the Master Box and the Tamiya, are all very good figures, and they're going to get used. You know, so don't please interpret my love of the ICM castings as being disparaging of the other brands. They're all perfectly good. I've got plenty of sets of Master Box and Tamiya, and I dare say they will be used at some point, notwithstanding the slight reservations I have. Anyway, thanks again for joining me, and I hope you'll join me again.